Now recording. Good morning, everybody. How is life today?
Pretty well.
Good.
Recently celebrated my great uncle's 87th birthday.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
We're going to continue on talking about databases today. We will work our way up to some actual honest-to-goodness examples of database integration with a PHP script. We're going to focus on getting code working today. So if you wouldn't mind, please travel to Mohawk Apps, start up XAMPP and your favorite code editor. Here we go. So, as we recall, the SQL database is a separate server process that is run both by XAMPP and by CS Unix when we get there. So, in order to have a database, you must start the database. Please start both your Apache web server and your SQL database server in XAMPP. Just as a review of how to set things up here, if you click New, this creates a new database. This is something that you will have to do on XAMPP, but your database will be provided to you when you move to CS Unix. My recommendation is to make the name of your database on XAMPP the same as the name of your database on CS Unix. This will minimize the amount of work you have to do to migrate from the local copy to the live server. Make sense? That should be your CS Unix login username, I believe. So, sometime this week or next, each of you should try logging in to your CS Unix SQL database account. Make sure that you can log in. If you can't, then it's actually IT's job to reset your password for you. Not mine, IT's. So, let me show you where to get to that. If you travel to csunix.mohawkcollege.ca/phpMyAdmin, there you go. You see that you will get the phpMyAdmin login credential system. You should attempt your CS Unix username. I believe your default password is well, try your CS Unix password, and if that doesn't work, try, I think it's SA year, month, day for your birthday, something like that. If that also doesn't work, then, or maybe, is there a thing in the modules about that, what the password's supposed to be, I wonder? Oh, there you go. Sorry. your MySQL password is in the file mysqlpassword.txt in your home directory. Okay, so if you go to WinSCP, open up the file in the home directory called mysqlpassword. That is the SQL password, so if that doesn't work, then you should talk to IT about it. Okay? Sound good? Alright, very good. So going back to our local XAMPP installation. So just as a review, video games. If you wish to create a video games related database, fill in the name, click create. For it to be useful, you need at least one table, games perhaps. If you click go, you are presented with the dialog for creating the schema. So let's create the schema quickly. Name, ID, title, rating, and genre. ID will be an auto-incrementing primary key. Title, we'll give that a varchar of length 128, why not? Rating shall be an integer. Genre shall be a varchar of size 64. That should be more than enough. There we go. Having created the table, in structure, you can see what the structure of the table is.
So what should the rating what types should the rating and genre be?
So rating is an integer.
Okay.
Genre, I made it a varchar of size 64.
Okay.
But you can pick a size. It doesn't matter too much, as long as it's a varchar or some other data type which accepts a string. With me so far, everyone? So far, so good? Good. So, this was my advice last time, and I will reiterate my advice today. So, when it comes to SQL, every vendor is a little bit different. Like, there's always slightly different syntax going on. Sometimes the set of types that you have available will change very, slightly from version of it to version of it. There's actually there's a reason for this. So, does anybody know the story of how SQL came about? So this is
started by IBM, I guess. If I know.
I can't recall if it's IBM but it's either IBM or Bell Labs or somebody in that vicinity. So this is how you used to create a programming language back in the old days. These days you start an open source GitHub project. That's how you do things. But back in the 70s and 80s, what you did was you wrote a great big specifications document, and then you licensed that document to other companies that would make implementations. This is how the C programming language worked. There are three main C compilers which are maintained even to this day. Does anybody know what they are?
You mean what?
C compilers for the C programming language. There are three big compilers that are still maintained.
No.
So one is GCC, that's the Linux one.
Okay.
One is Clang, that's the IBM one. And one is the Windows C compiler. Now of those three compilers, only two of them are actually compliant with the specification. I'll let you guess which one isn't. So back in the day, the SQL document specification was written, and unfortunately, it was a little loose. There was more room for interpretation in that document than, for example, in the C specification. So, when a company went to make an implementation of SQL, they got to put in all of their little features that are specific to their implementation. These they would see as their unique selling points over other varieties of SQL. The SQL that you folks have learned here is more or less the common, it's the common set of operations that all of these vendors will implement, right? Although the particular program that you used to study these operations, it has its own little ways of doing things, right? So does PHP MyAdmin. In particular, I find that this one is a little bit finicky about back quotes, whereas other implementations are not as finicky about back quotes. So that's what these are. These are backticks and not apostrophes. The backtick button is located above tab on your keyboard. So my recommendation: have the thing auto-generate your queries from this page. Modify this as you need to, and then copy-paste that into your PHP script. That way, you're much more likely to hit an SQL query that this system will think is syntactically acceptable. Does that make sense?
So we put the query here.
So
could you explain?
So the whole point of this lesson
Yeah.
is we will be able to send this from a PHP script, right? We won't, it's very likely that all of I've never actually taught the database theory course, but I imagine most of the time you've got your database software, you're entering your SQL queries, you can see what you're doing, right? You've got full access to the database, right? Maybe you don't want everybody to have full access to the database. Maybe you shouldn't trust the user, right? So, for example, let's take, for example, Pokemon Go. Everybody knows Pokemon Go? Yeah, more or less? Well, it's a game where you collect monsters. There's a database that records what monsters you've collected. If you gave the user direct access to it, they could just give themselves whatever monsters they want. It completely defeats the purpose of the game, right? So, what we're trying to do is build the server as a middleman between the user and the database that controls how the user accesses the database, right? That's the purpose of what we're doing here, right? If we want to think in kind of a REST application kind of, framework, we want to provide an API and views of the database. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make APIs and we're trying to make views. But at the moment, we're kind of more in a vanilla kind of web, HTML, JavaScript, CSS kind of mode of thinking, so let's stick there for now.
What did you type in before pressing on insert button?
Nothing. This was blank. I pressed insert, and it automatically creates an insert query with all of the fields.
Oh, I thought I saw something typing already. Okay.
Oh, I didn't type that.
Okay.
So one thing about this query, we have set the ID as auto-incrementing, which means we don't need to provide it. So this one, we should delete straight away, like that. Then, just to give this table a little bit of data, what's a video game? Balatro. There we go. Rating.
Not sure actually, we'll check.
How many people in the room like Balatro?
I played a kind of mock operation, I liked it.
Okay. 1. Okay. And genre would be card game, I guess?
Yeah, it's also put on a roguelike.
Card game / rogue like. Alright. Okay, good. So, let's do a couple more. Someone give me a video game.
Tetris.
Tetris, hey. Tetris, very good. How many people like Tetris? 3. Tetris gets a rating of 3. I think Tetris is like the quintessential puzzle game, yeah? It doesn't get much more puzzle game than Tetris.
So for MySQL, we don't need to specify the type of the data.
We already have.
Just a
When we set up the database schema in the previous
Oh,
page,
okay.
we set the data types. So here, we don't have to worry about it.
Mm,
Make sense?
yeah.
Good. Yes?
Is your rating a string?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Pardon me. Ha 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 ha. There we go. And they let me teach people. One more video game for us, please. Mario. Which one?
Super Mario Bros.
Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. Rating? How many people like Super Mario? Oh, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. Very good. Mr. Video Game, it seems, strikes again. Platformer. There we go. Go! So there you go. In that little box, you can enter multiple SQL queries so long as you separate them with semicolons. Did you know that at one point Mario was named Mr. Video Game? That's actually true. Like back in the 80s, he was Mr. Video Game for a brief period. So, if we go to Browse, you can see that we now have our table. Probably a clunkier interface than you're used to, but it does everything it needs to do, even if it ain't pretty. So, I'm going to show you something relatively important now. It's pretty simple, but still very useful. Let me show you how to import and export data from this thing. Okay? So, it's pretty simple. There is an Export tab. If you click Export, click Go, you download an SQL file. For me, I'm going to drop this in my XAMPP folder, just because. Make a new folder for today, 2025-07-10. There we go. Games.sql. You may be interested to see what kind of hyper-compressed format it comes in. And no, it's like actually literally just the it's just the SQL queries that you need to reconstruct the database. That's what exporting the database means in this context. Okay? So it goes. So basically this note, you can actually you can edit these things and put your own queries into these files if you want to, but you know, you probably don't need to. Alright, good. So we've taken a backup of our data. Now, if we do something like go to our video games database and you are about to destroy a complete table. Are you really sure you want to do so? Yes. Bum, bum, bum. So, to re-import the data that we just backed up, there is, of course, an import tab. You browse your computer for the file that you just downloaded. It makes sense to keep, when you keep backups, it makes sense to keep them in the same folder as your PHP scripts and your HTML and all that stuff. At least while you're developing on your local machine. Doesn't make sense to do that on a web server. Games.sql, open. There we go. Click go. And import has successfully finished. There you go. Our games table is back, including all of the games that we had previously. So far, so good. So this is like an operation that you'll need to do to complete the final assignment, because you'll be given an SQL file containing a database, and you will have to work with that data. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So, very good, very good. So far, so good. Now, please open up your code editor, and let's get some PHP underway. Call this one connect.php. So, as we do this example, we're going to work in a little bit of file modularity, a little bit of script modularity. So, we have called this file connect.php. The object is to write some PHP code which connects to the database but doesn't do much else, so that this script can be imported in loads of other places. Your assignments, for example. Right? So, on Canvas, you will find this block of code. This block of code requires some slight modification in order to be used, but this will work. So, copy that, paste it in. There we go. So, in order to connect to the database, we need 4 pieces of information. Number 1, where is the database located on the network? Number 2, within the database server, which particular database am I trying to access? That is, which one of these do I want? Right? We don't have to worry about accessing the table. Accessing the table is something you do at the level of the SQL query itself, right? Think select star from table, right? You can select from multiple different tables. You also need to know, where is it here? There we go. You also need to know your username and password for the database. Database servers are password protected, as you would expect them to be, so you require login credentials. So,
just a quick question.
Sure.
Before moving on. What's the difference between using the video and just a simple string stuck in a variable.
So,
Because the connection could be done also doing it's MySQL, but another way, but not
yeah,
using
there are a couple of alternative ways
Yeah.
of connecting to a server using PHP.
Okay.
This is the modern way of doing it that has built-in protections against SQL injection attacks.
Okay.
If
yeah.
you use it correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a security thing is why we use this one. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So since our database server is located on localhost, our database name, now I don't know about you, but I find this a little bit hard to pick out the information. Maybe we should externalize some variables. Database, video games, username, password. Maybe even call that DB username and DB password just so that it doesn't like clash with other variables that you may want to use later on in the program. DB name, DB user, DB password. So when you are connecting to an XAMPP database server, you will always have the same credentials. Your username is root, and your password is an empty string. All we need to do now is to name, throw these guys in there. And suddenly this becomes a lot more readable and usable, right? It is a matter of politeness when you have things in your code which may change, to put the things that may change at the top of the file, so that you or another developer, when you come along and need to change something, everything, all the configuration options are right there at the top. You know, maybe even leave a couple of comments, you know. There is such a thing as being overly verbose though as well, so. I always tend to think that if your variable names are meaningful, it reduces the amount of commenting you have to do. It's not quite self-documenting code, but it's you know, using useful variable names is useful. So, good. Any questions so far? If die should be avoided in production code, let's replace it with the thing that it should be. Exit 0. And I think we set it so that there was an HTML return code, but let's just move on for now. Let's keep the ball rolling. So, connect.php. Good, wonderful. Let's just do a quick little echo. Failed to connect. There we go. Now, let's go to localhost 1080 slash not dashboard, 2025-07-10. There we go. If I open up connect.php, by the way, the reason that you don't want to put your SQL file on the production server, like in that folder, is because then somebody can just request the file and get your backup of your database, which probably is not what you want. Connect.php says nothing. Very good. It says nothing if it works. So, let me ask you a question. What are some reasons that the connection to the database may fail?
Other than the username and password,
Username and password is junk, yes? Any other reasons?
Database name is junk.
The database name is junk, yep. Anything else?
Database doesn't exist.
Database doesn't exist, yep, that's a reason for sure. Although that might also, that's kind of like a subcategory of the name is junk. There's one other one.
the server itself,
The server itself,
maybe the server did not stop.
the server itself isn't running. Yes, very good. So, for example, if I stop the SQL server, reload, you can see it's taken a while. Failed to connect. There you go. Try her again. And it connected. So, we have a working live connection. Now, we need to do something with it. So let's make a new PHP script. Call this index.php. There we go. So, the first thing that our index page needs to do is to establish the connection. Does anybody know how we get one PHP script to execute inside of another?
Include.
Include, yes. Does it have the pound sign in front of it? Yeah, I think it does.
Yes.
No, I don't think it does. I think it's a function. Is
No,
it
it's a quotes. Double quotes.
normal quotes?
Double quotes.
Like that?
No.
No.
No, like include double quotes and then double quote contains yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. True, thank you. So, we then type in the name connect.php. Now, there are actually 4 such statements which you can use. Include is one of them. Does anybody know what the other one, what one of the other ones is?
Require.
Require, very good. So what's the difference between include and require?
One is mandated, you have to have it.
Well, yes. So it all has to do with errors. With include, if an error occurs during the execution of the thing you are trying to include, it stops that, but it continues on with the rest of the script. With require, if an error occurs while the required script is executing, it kills the whole process. Now, in our situation, which would be more appropriate? Include or require?
Include.
Well,
I mean, just for testing purposes.
just for testing purposes, okay.
Yeah, for
But
production.
How
require.
much is, given that this is like, the whole point of this is to connect to a database, if the connection to the database fails, how much useful work can this PHP script do? Not much. So, this is a situation where you might be more inclined to use a require as opposed to include. Let's just leave it as include for now though, okay?
Okay. So,
one fun thing about including files, variables which you create inside of included files will exist within the context of the file that the script that called that script. So our database handler object will be available to us from within index.php. Very good. Very good, because the database handle is the way that we interact with the database. So, let's see if we can just get a nice, simple select query going on. So, when we send a query using the database handler, we need a couple of things. First is the query itself, right? Makes sense. The semicolon is optional in these cases. So, the query select star from games. Now, you remember how I was saying you should use the SQL pane to generate your insert query and then copy paste it in? This is where you should copy paste it in. So, you remember how I was saying methods use this absolutely silly, ludicrous arrow notation? Yeah. So the way that the PDO object works, we have an SQL statement and we prepare it. We queue it up, get it ready to execute. Prepare query. The return result of this will be a statement object. The statement object, you can think of it like a little blinking cursor at a command prompt inside of a command line interface window. That's roughly speaking what it is and what it's doing, right? Preparing the statement is like I'm opening up a cursor with this command preloaded. But we need to save it because it's the return result of this method. The next thing that we do is we execute the statement. This is very similar to pressing enter in your command line.
For
Yes?
the third statement here, the result would be stored in a DDH.
No.
Because I see the query already. What does the prepare?
So, basically there are two types of objects that we need to worry about,
Okay.
right? You have database handle, and you have statement. So, the database handle represents the connection to the database, used to open statements. can be used to close connection. Does that make sense? The statement contains a query, sends query, like this actually sends the query to the database, and receive, before you accept that, receive, data is stored here. So statement objects are the return results of the executing
Yeah.
a prepare method.
Yeah, I don't have,
Yeah.
I do understand this one,
Okay.
there's no problem, but where, the one I don't understand is the database handle. So you said it contains the connection?
Yes. So, you know file IO? It's a little bit like the file handle object. Right?
Oh, so, okay. Kind of an abstract thing?
Yeah, so in file IO, when you
Okay.
open a file,
No.
you get a reference to the file,
Mm.
but not the file itself, right? You then have to use methods like fread or fwrite to
Yeah.
do stuff with that file. In this context,
Okay.
database handle is like the file handle, and all of the stuff that we do with statement is like fread and fwrite. File IO is simpler, this has more steps, but like on this side of the line, you should think of that as being equivalent to your file handle. Does that make sense?
Mm.
This thing's doing background processes, like keeping a live connection between one server and another, but the whole point of having one is that we abstract those details out and we don't have to worry about them. Does that make sense?
Okay. And that's come from a little bit, because we use the connection file, right?
Yes.
Because, yeah, okay, okay.
The database handle is a new PDO.
This is, yeah,
Sound good?
yeah,
Any other questions?
yeah.
Very good. So, having prepared the statement,
I was a bit confused because the variable was in another file.
yes,
And here, we are using again, is it a global thing in that case?
yeah,
Because
it's,
the same variable is used in two files.
yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes. Anything declared global in this context
Yeah.
will show up as global in the other.
Okay.
So the database handle, because it's being declared global, we have it available here in index. One of the advantages of doing it this way is that we can use connect.php on a whole bunch of projects, and we will always have the same database handle object available.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So we have prepared the query and we have created our statement. We must now execute the statement. Execute. There we go. Because this is a simple statement and it doesn't take any parameters, this is as complicated as it gets for right now. Once we start doing more complicated queries, this will get a little bit more complicated. So the return result of this is a Boolean indicating the success or failure of executing the query. We can store that in a response variable if response is equal to, if response, yes, echo success, else echo failure. Does anybody remember the reason we can't echo response directly? That's a. This is a nice little little reminder about how PHP hates you. What do you get when you try to echo a Boolean true literal? Just Boolean true. What do you get? Because you don't get the word true.
Zero, well, zero or zero for fails? No. I think there is 0 and 1.
Yes. Well, almost. True. Boolean. So Booleans convert to strings kind of like they're integers.
Yeah.
True is automatically like string converted as 1. False. This is the fun one. Empty string. Technically speaking, what it's actually giving you is the null character, but the null character, like inside of a string, is that like that's the actual literal definition of an empty string. Ha! You thought empty strings were empty, didn't you? No, they contain the null character. So that's it shows up like that. It doesn't show up at all when you try to print false in PHP. That's why it's necessary to do this kind of nonsense, because PHP hates you. It's always, always important to remind yourself that at all points, PHP hates you and JavaScript hates you. JavaScript hates you, but PHP hates you and can hurt you, because it's a server. So you gotta treat PHP with more respect than JavaScript. So, so we're at the moment we're just responding with success or failure. So let's see if we get success or failure. Success! Very good. So let me ask you a question. What could cause this statement to fail? Aside from database connection issues. Let's assume we have a live connection. What can cause this statement to bork?
If the statement is false?
If the statement, what do you mean by false?
Like incorrect syntax.
Very good. Yes, that's definitely one way. If there's a syntax problem inside of the statement itself, that will cause the server to just reject it. For example, well, literally anything actually. Failure. There you go. Unfortunately, you don't get much more. If you go digging around in the statement object, you can probably find more information about what failed, but that's fine. So, now, let's dig the information that we've received out of the statement object. You recall I wrote on the board here, received data is stored here. Again, you should think of the thing like a little command line interface, right? It's got its command preloaded, but this is the equivalent of you pressing enter, and what we're about to do is the equivalent of that command line interface barfing up all that data. So, statement. So, for this, I would like to pull up the PHP documentation. There we go. This is like the article that this information comes from. So, various ways of doing things, of course. I can't find it. Anyway, I thought I'd look it up in the documentation, but unfortunately I'll have to use the notes. So, fetch. We have two variations. We have fetch and we have fetch all. You can probably see the difference between the two. But this is kind of a weird little thing. What's this parameter? Why on earth am I seeing this? What is that double dot?
Double dot. And
Yes.
Yeah.
So, any C++ programmers in the crowd?
C++.
C++? So this guy here is borrowed from C++.
Oh, yes.
We can look him up in the documentation actually.
Because of the object.
It is the scope resolution operator, also called Peyameyim Nekudotayim.
Is that Latin for double colon?
It's Hebrew actually. There you go. There you go.
Oh,
It actually does mean double colon in Hebrew. So there you go. I don't personally speak Hebrew, which is why my pronunciation was so clunky. But yeah, you can just call it the scope resolution operator. So basically, what's going on here? There we are. So PDO, as well as being an object that you can instantiate, is also a namespace. It has a bunch of definitions packaged up in there. It has some enumerations. In order to avoid this name conflicting with the same uses of it by other libraries, it's stuffed into the PDO library, so we have to know how to pull it back out again, the scope resolution operator. This is basically kind of a fancy dot. Other languages will use just dot for this, right? So like, for example, in Java, with the Java FX library, you'll like the effect of importing is so that you don't have to use it, but like if
like
you
the
say,
math function, right?
So it's
Yeah.
Math dot square root mark
it's a
dot-
kind of.
yeah, the math dot square root is a good
Okay,
example.
okay.
Yeah. In C++, you would it distinguishes between namespaces and objects. If it's a namespace, then you have to use this thing, like if it's a context. It's kind of an academic difference a little bit. You should just think of it like it's a dot. But yeah. So PDO double colon, then we've got three options. Fetch, assoc, both, and obj. So essentially, this actually comes down to the same problem that we have when we are JSON decoding, right? You remember the second parameter we need to include when we use
True.
JSON decode?
True.
Right. What does it do though?
It turns into an associative array, not an object. So
That's right. Yes. So PHP, because PHP is PHP, it needs to know whether you want that thing interpreted as an associative array or an object, because unlike JavaScript, it maintains a distinction between those things, right? Those are not the same thing in PHP, even though those are the same thing in JavaScript. So you have to tell it which one you want, and this is the way you do it. Because we've kind of been using associative arrays more so than objects, and the object notation involves that weird arrow operator, fetch, PDO, fetch associative. In fact, I'm just going to use fetch all. I wonder if it has an underscore or not. Let me check quickly. Fetch all. There you go. Oh, it got reference right there. With a capital. Okay. You know, one of the things that I really love about PHP is how it keeps a consistent naming convention between all of its method names. Like, you always know where you stand with PHP. It's not like some are using snake case, some are using camel case, you know. I was being sarcastic. Right? Because like JSON decode, if you didn't know, that's called snake case. Right? Fetch all, that's camel case. If you're a programming language that knows when to get up in the morning, you keep that consistent in your libraries. It's okay. PHP is PHP. PHP is the worst. Almost as bad as JavaScript. So, let's, we can even mix our casings on the same line. Echo, JSON, encode, bing-a-bang-a-boom. Just to see the data, you know. If you want to be fancy and do an assignment, then you would take this data and you'd populate like an HTML table with it or something like that. But let's just see the data, shall we? Where are we? Here we are. Oh-ho! There's our data. An array of associative arrays. Looking good? Make sense? So, we have gone to the server, we've collected information into our PHP script, and now we have thrown that back up into our HTML. We've created a page using it, even if that page is really simple and dumb. Make sense?
Yep.
Good. Any questions?
Can you just take a look at the code again?
Yeah, sure.
To make sure that my stuff lines up.
So here's an example of what just fetch does. You can probably guess, but you get only one entry. So it's not that fetch like only gives you one entry. It is doing basically the same thing as fread, right? Or fgetString, yeah, pardon me. It's reading one line out of the output at a time. In order to get the whole output, you have to keep doing fetches.
So, putting in a loop?
Yeah, in a loop, waiting for the end of the data. So, For example, is this in a loop? No. There you go.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a heuristic that I tell my students, which I think is a good one. No matter what language you're programming in, you should try to pretend that it's Java, right? I'd just like to take a moment to discuss this nonsense, because this nonsense also shows up, like here, these two lines, right? Within the PHP programming community, I guess you could say, it's idiomatic to take this statement and put it inside of this. Right? You'll have seen this in the notes a couple of times, but
Yeah.
essentially, like, what PHP people
Yeah.
like to do is they like to do that.
Mm.
Right? The only reason that works in PHP, do you know what the return result of an assignment operation is? So, if you're thinking about a programming language like Java, the idea that an assignment operator has a return result is a nonsense, right? It's assigning to memory. What do you mean it has a return result? The effect is its effect on memory. You idiot. In PHP, the assignment operator returns the value that was assigned. Essentially, whatever value is assigned here, this whole expression is substituted for that, which means you can do assignment to a variable and use of that variable in the same place at the same time. However, like, I think it's an anti-pattern. I think it does not make it clear what you're doing. I don't think it's that onerous to have 2 lines there instead of 1, right? Like, you're spending a little space, but you're gaining a lot of clarity and making the code readable to people who aren't, like, you know, embedded in PHP. So, I don't recommend doing it. Does that make sense? So, also, like, let's consider this stupid bloody thing, right? Because this is the way that it's recommending you fetch all of the elements out of an array. Or, fetch all of the entries that you got from the database. So this thing runs until it's false, right? We can presume this means that when fetch has nothing left to fetch, its return result is false, right? Basically, this is like relying on the definition of equality, or like, so, all right. So we know what while false does. We know what while true does. What does while 42 do?
What does what? Which one?
If I were to write this, while 42, is that an infinite loop or not?
Not the infinite.
So how many people think this is an infinite loop? How many people think that this would not, that we not execute anything in here? How many people think this is equivalent to false? How many people don't know are not confident to make a make a guess.
Does it run 42
Do
times?
140?
It does not run 42 times. No.
Oh, no?
That might even be useful. That might be useful, but no, it doesn't run 42 times.
Because the while true will run all the time.
Yes. So if it's
Uh,
like you may like while true, that's an infinite loop,
yeah.
right? A lot of like a thing that novice programmers do a lot is they'll overuse these and then use break statements to break out of their loops. It's like it's fine, but eventually you kind of grow out of that. So true doesn't really exist. True is actually 1. So while 1 is an infinite loop, is while 42 an infinite loop? As a matter of fact, it is.
So any number put in the bracket.
Any
I mean,
value
in the
that's
parentheses.
not 0
Yeah.
is a true.
Alright.
If you cast any non-zero value as a Boolean, it's true.
So, okay, I see.
So the thing that PHP is relying on here is like, oh, you know, this is not just true of primitives, this is also true of collection types, which is the stupidest. It is stupid to cast an associative array as a Boolean. I'm sorry, but I said it. Yes.
You said that if the number's integer counts as true, does that also include negative numbers?
Yes.
Yeah.
So any negative number will be counted as true.
So it actually has to do with the way that the CPU works. Like this is not just a PHP thing I'm talking about. Like the way that Boolean operations are, like the circuits are laid out in the CPU itself, that is true. So, and you know, I don't have time to get into like the hardware, but yeah, like when you call for an AND operation and that's being executed on the actual hardware, if you AND together like 7 and 47, that counts as a true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right? So that's what it's doing and why it's doing it. And I hope you'll agree with me when I say that's a little too hardware-y, you know? That like, okay. In the past, programmers were kind of encouraged by other programmers to take advantage of these like stupid little hidden rules about how the CPU architecture works. As time has gone on, we have discovered that basing your code base on stupid little rules that are difficult to remember and few people know about, it makes you look like a wizard, but it makes it very difficult for other people to work with you in your code. So, as I said, always program like it's Java. Right? So, what's the better way of doing that? Let's do it. Let's write that. Didn't I say at one point that when I open up the notes, it's mostly to complain about them? So we'll need to save the result of this to a variable. We can, we should call it record, because that's what the lines in a database are called, right? If, well, I'm gonna do it. This is just the way my brain is making me do this. So if record strongly equal to false. Great. Otherwise, echo JSON encode record and maybe concat. Oh, now it's not concatenate PHP, is it? There you go. That does the same thing. But don't take my word for it. Oh, line 11 you say? That is a parsing error, that's true. There you go. So it makes you look less like a wizard, but it's much easier to debug. And right now, everybody in this room should be worried less about looking like a wizard and more about being able to write maintainable code, particularly by yourself. Right? Like, not to get on too high a horse or off on too much of a tangent, but in order to program well, in order to improve your programming, you need to think like the computer, right? In order to think like the computer, you need to think in terms of state and its transformations, right? This means you have to be able to, in your head, do what the computer does. It is easier to do that if you break it down in terms of its basic operations, right? This breaks it down in terms of its basic operations. You know, this, aside from this method here, which is doing databasey stuff, this is a program you could have seen in Python, right? Start there, right? Only once you've got this, like, and you can do that fluently, should you be worried about making your code compact. Compact code, like I sometimes say that like the fewer lines of code you have, the less surface you have for bugs to live on, which is true to an extent, but you know, if you're just following patterns that you've been shown, if you look at something like this and you don't know what's going on in it and you use it anyways, you're not going to you're not going to be able to debug it, right? At least your debug efficiency will be like 20 or 30% of what it would be if you actually understood what code you were looking at and what it does, right? So you don't have to be fancy, right? Write it in a way that makes sense. Don't rely overly on design patterns that you've seen that you don't understand. So do you guys know what the minimal set of constructions you need to produce all programs is?
Minimum instruction?
Yeah, the minimal number of instructions you need in the programming language to do all programs. You need the ability to write memory. You need the ability to read memory. You need selection, if statements, and you need repetition loops. While loop is the most basic loop. If you have those four things, and you have the ability to make programs that never terminate, that meets a condition which we call Turing completeness, which means that all possible programs can be written using that system. It is okay to default there when you need to. Everything you need to do can be done with while loops and if statements. Everything. While loops, if statements, and variables. With that, you can do everything. Past that point, it's a question of how efficiently can you work, right? Everything after that is increasing your efficiency, right? Like functions, technically unnecessary, but you have to do a lot of copy pasting, right? So, you shouldn't get comfortable with those and then stop developing your skill, but that is the basis from which all other programming skills are derived. If you don't have these basics down, you need to train them until you do, and then you can move on. Okay? Sound good?
Yeah. Can we do a small test for the first part of the if statement? I want to see something.
Okay, what do you need?
What could be the statement that lead to get the fields?
Sorry,
Because if I was going to do to write this statement, probably I would not put in a way, just echo the result. So I just want to know, I just want to see what could be possible. You see, the if statement, there are two parts,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second part, we saw that on the page.
Yeah, this is the bit that gets printed, yeah.
Yeah, but I want to see the first part.
You want to see the break?
Yeah, the break.
What happened? Okay,
If
right there, it breaks. So, break, the break keyword breaks you out of the loop that you're in. So, right now, this is an infinite loop, right? While true is always true. So, you're never not going to be in this loop, except this statement basically jumps you here after the loop. You know how we're not supposed to use go-tos? You guys know about go-tos, yeah. You're not supposed to use go-tos? Well, break is kind of a special go-to that they kind of give you anyway. So it's just go to the point after this loop ends. That's what a break does.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, if you have a language that doesn't have if statements or while loops but has go-tos, that's also Turing complete. But also really hard to work with. So, shall we try something a little different?
Yeah.
Great idea. Let's do an insert statement. Sound good? All right. So, let's not only do an insert statement, but let's collect the information for the insert statement from the user. So, on our index page, let's throw in a form. Let's target insert.php. We'll write a new PHP script for this. There we go. Input type is equal to text. Name is equal to game. or name, we'll make that title. Input type is equal to, text is also fine. Name is equal to rating. Input type is equal to text. Name is equal to genre. That's the other one. Then, of course, a submit button. Input type equals submit. Lowercase. Value is equal to submit. Nice little HTML form. Gesundheit. So, let's make insert.php. We need to connect to the database, so let's include the connection. PHP, there we go. So, we will need to prepare a query. The purpose of the query is to perform an insert operation. So let's follow that advice that I gave us. Generate that, copy, paste, put her in quotes. There we go. There we go. Now we need to put some values in there. These are going to be gathered from a get query, but get query parameters. So let's throw in some filter inputs. Title is filter input underscore get. Name is title filter sanitize special chars. Is it sanitize or sanitize?
Sanitize.
There we go. Very good. Title, rating, and genre. Of course, rating is not a string, so that will be filter validate int. We should change the variable names though, shouldn't we? There we go. Good. We won't worry about null checking. You guys have done that enough. We'll just keep moving with the database example. But, you know, for an assignment or something, you'd check to see if these were null or false and all the rest of it. So, if you were doing this as a bedroom programmer and did not have somebody like me here to teach you not to do this, the intuitive thing you would probably do is this.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Does anybody know why this is bad? Why am I warning against you doing this?
Why?
Someone
Because
can hack.
Sorry? You sir.
Someone can hack.
Someone can hack it. That's right. This leaves us vulnerable to what?
SQL injection.
SQL injection. That's right. You know, PHP is credited for the existence and invention of the SQL injection attack because of this specifically.
PHP should be
Okay.
out of date. It's fine.
Right? You don't have to sell me on it. So, this is the problem that the PDO object is trying to solve. If we do this, even if we're sanitizing special characters, the user might be able to sneak an SQL injection attack through. Now, you still want to sanitize up here, right? Because when it comes to security, more layers is better, right? Here's how you fix this. Here's the basic way. You leave actual literal question mark characters in your query. The PDO object interprets these as placeholders. The next thing we're going to do, once we've created the statement, is we're going to fill these placeholders with the data in a safe way. So, a lot of this code is the same every time, so you can like actually just, yoink. You can yoink the code. We're not going to be looping this way. So, we prepare the query, and now it is the execute method where we provide the data. We provide it using this method in the form of an array. T R G. The positions of the data in the array that we just created should be the same as the positions of the question marks here. So it's like it's a one-to-one mapping. Element 0 goes to question mark 0. Element 1 goes to question mark 1. Element 2 goes to question mark 2. There are different ways of doing this where you can decouple that, but for now this is the basic way. Let's get the basic way working. Sound good?
Yep.
Wonderful. So, we execute the query, we provide the data, we get success or failure. Let's see if it works. Here we go. Probably the worst web form you've ever seen, but nevertheless. So, let's have a, what's a video game? Sim Ant. How many people know what Sim Ant is? People are looking it up furiously on their computer. 0, rating of 0, nobody likes it, except me. Well, that's one then, one person likes it. Genre, nest building? Submit, success! We go back, reload the page. Our item has been added. Ta-da! If we take a look here at the database, shoot, there we go.
So from the PHP 5, not this one, the other one, the main one, yeah, can we try to display the record nicely in a top, example in a chart? No?
I think we've got time. We can whip that up pretty quick. I'm not gonna use open close PHP tags, so I'm just gonna echo some HTML tags.
Yeah.
So yeah, echo table, echo end table. Each one of these will be a row, Echo table row, echo and table row, there you go. So this one becomes a little bit more complicated, right? We can't just JSON encode the record and echo
Yeah.
it.
No.
We're more echoing TD and TD.
Oh.
Record, this is an associative array at, I think you have to put this in these guys now. Record at title. If I could spell, that would help. There you go.
You
Title, rating, and genre. If I check, and I think that's correct. Title, rating, genre. Oh, and ID. I forgot ID. ID. There we go. Let's see if it works. Oh.
okay.
Line 20. Missing semicolons. Gets me every time. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's like
This, and then
HTML table with nothing.
No bootstrap.
Not even so much as a CSS. Style.
yeah.
Table. TR, TD, border, 2 pixel, or 1 pixel, solid, black. There we go. Boink. There you go. Now it's a table.
Yeah.
And from there you would do whatever formatting you
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, one of the things that you should always keep in mind when you want to print stuff is, does the structure of the program already mimic the structure of the code I mean to produce? Right? Like, I can build the table part right in where I'm reading things out of the database. I don't have to read and dump and then generate the table from that, although you can also do it that way. This is a bit more efficient. Make sense? In particular, just one note on that. This is a server. Servers need memory. If you're renting your server, guess what you're paying for? You're paying for CPU processing cycles and memory, right? You will get charged for how much memory you use. Is it a good idea to dump your entire database into your PHP script all at once? It's not. You should, in this case, we're overwriting this one record variable with one array each time we read something from here.
Okay.
So that's using less memory. But even there, we're still using a fair amount of memory because this thing contains all of the data from the database. So basically, you might be inclined, and this is possible, you might be inclined to dump your entire database content into your PHP script and then filter it there, right? But this is bad. This is not a great way of doing it. Use your SQL queries. Use them the way that they were intended. They are intended to filter the data, so you should be filtering your data at that step. Make sense? Once again, all programming languages should be seen as tools, right? They are tools in your toolbox. Each tool is good at one task and less good at other tasks, but you can make them do each other's task, reasonably well. Being a professional means knowing which tasks are best suited to which tools. Does that make sense? Alright, good. Any other questions while we're on this? In that case, let me just take a quick look through the notes to see if I didn't forget anything. So did I mention that, this guy here is also one of those ones where PHP people will like to take this and put it in there? That's another one that you'll typically see.
You mean the whole expression?
Yeah,
Yeah. You already
people
mentioned-
will take that.
Yeah, you already mentioned that.
Yeah. In fact, not only that, but the Boolean response variable here is often not even used after this if statement, so they'll often just put it like that.
Yeah.
If statement execute, which, the data is being stored in the statement on success, that's true. But, I think it's a lot less clear what's going on, and I really detest method calls inside of if statements. I don't like it. So, good. We could probably squeeze one more query in. Do you want to do a yeah, question?
May I see the insert PHP?
Yep. Actually, the best I can do for an example right now is here's how to drop the whole table. Here's a button to kill everything, which I think you can probably get there pretty easily from what I've shown you. So why don't we make that's your homework for next week. Take this and add a couple more CRUD operations. I'll go over the theory for how you would in theory, it would be cool to put a button in the table that was a delete button, right? Let me show you how you can do that. So if you add another row to the table and you make that a button, or maybe even just a link, delete. If you say something like href delete entry.php, and then, lo and behold, you have to escape these. There you go. Delete entry.php, and then you include a get parameter setting the ID of this entry that you're on. Let me show you what the effect of that is. So we now have a bunch of delete links,
Oh, okay.
and if you hover over them, look, delete entry.php ID is 1, right? ID is 2, ID is 3, ID is 4. If I click on these, like I don't have delete.php, right? But you can take these parameters and work them in that way. Did you know that you can use get parameters that way? Probably not, eh? See? Object not found, but there's our get parameter. So, there you go. As homework, why don't you guys make delete entry.php as an exercise? Okay? I will post the code. And any objection to ending class 4 minutes early? No? Alright, so be it. Thank you for your time and attention today, folks. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Yes?
No, I tried to do the insert, but for some reason mine isn't working.
Oh, yeah, sure, let me take a look. Well, I'm not sure that'll map much of that to the rest of this. Go to
Image.
Yeah,
Oh, and then,
yeah, put some there. So what do you getting for failure? It seems to think that there's a syntax error here then.
the backticks are fine, right?
Yes, the backticks are.
ID shouldn't be here, auto implemented, so there's no problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, so
This is what I would do. Comment that out, pull in the select query from the other side, just to see if like that it is actually the query, because that query we know is good. And that's like a good first step anyway.
Yeah, no one's happy. Video game.
Oh.
Just became corporate.
Oh, I think I figured it out.
Oh, what was it?
The name of my table was different.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'll do it.
God, I hate PHP.
Well, in that case, it was SQL that we made.
Everyone's happy.
Yeah, it works.
Perfect.
Wow, true. Where is it? Wow, true. Record equals statement fetch. Yeah, that's good. And then if record is false, look at break. Otherwise, echo JSON. JSON encode. Yeah, output. Yeah, output. Yeah.
Is the example we used today going to be on
I don't see it. Yeah, that's
website, like on
yeah.
the
Everything looks.
It already is.
Okay. Is it in the